A very warm welcome to all our panelists today and to all of you all joining us live today. This is our second panel, and we'll be talking today about boosting employee retention while balancing work-life norms and how we can ensure that work-life balance and equilibrium is achieved. This I find is a particularly timely topic because work from home is the condition is perennial, and hopefully we will soon shift into a hybrid model and perhaps have a less crucial or an excruciating third wave. But until then, we need to focus on how we can ensure this equilibrium, and I want to understand that from the panelists today. What we hope to understand today is also to balance three ambits: one of a colliding personal and professional life, one of individual work skills and work ethics, and thirdly, of a larger organizational culture and how that shapes employee well-being. Leaders today are juggling with not just ensuring a sort of disease or burnout avoidance strategy, but rather focusing on the positive end of the spectrum too, on how to ensure well-being. So with that, I'd really like to warmly welcome Mr. Rajesh, Mr. Menda, and Mr. Menon onto the panel. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Jenny.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Pleasure.
So I think I'd like to direct my first question to you, Mr. Rajesh. What is this elusive work-life equilibrium? How do we define it? And in your opinion, what is it really?
Thanks, Jenny. It's an interesting question. See, this is being talked about the work-life balance, as work is something which is very different from the life. The way I see it, I think it's one unified whole. I don't suspect these two being two different black and white segments and not talking to each other. Pandemic, and particularly in the current situation when all of us are working from home, and I keep hearing the work life or work and home boundaries are getting blurred. I guess the work-life equilibrium to me is something to be able to manage the time to address our responsibilities at work front as well as on the home front. It has been, in my personal experience, an extremely interesting time, particularly when all of us are actually logged in homes. And while we do feel that our boundaries are blurred, but the fact is that all of us don't have too much else to do as well. So from a work-life equilibrium point of view, I think if I am able to address some of my responsibilities at home, get time or manage time rather, I won't say get time, rather manage time to devote time to something that I want to do, read, music, films. I think it's fairly adjustable in that sense.
Right. Over to you, Mr. Menda. As opening comments, what is that equilibrium in your opinion?
So good afternoon, all of you, and thanks, Janani, for the question. So for me, I think quite similar to what Rajesh said, but I think in the past we clearly had two things that actually kind of define those boundaries. One is the physical workplace, and the second one is time. Now, when you look at the physical workplace, if you are in office, you would say I'm working, and we are at home, then it's your personal time. And if you're commuting, it's somewhere in between. If you're working on the way, taking some calls, then somewhere in between. So it was very clearly defined in terms of the physical boundaries. I think the second one was around time. So once you left office, then we probably would assume it's your personal time, and therefore people wouldn't call you. But of late, as you're all well aware and we are all experiencing the same, I think when you are working from home, you are actually working for home and working from home, both. And therefore it becomes quite challenging in terms of, how do you define that boundary from a kind of physical and time boundary standpoint. I think one thing I've always seen is the self-discipline bit plays a big role, and more so when you are in your home environment. In office, I think the organization supervisors would see you. If you're overworking, then they will probably kind of nudge you, saying that perhaps you're working too late, you need to go back home, etc. But in the home environment, you are the king. You are to self-discipline yourself. And historically, you would have seen three sets of colleagues, right? One who are disciplined, who always did cut off work on a respectable time, They always took care of their wellness and would go off from office and put in the 8 or 9 hours of work. The second were actually disciplined by force. Disciplined by force, I mean, they had to be disciplined because they had to catch a train to go back home, or they had kids whom they needed to heat in the night, or they had to take care of something at home. So the responsibilities actually forced the discipline on them. And I think the third one, where people who generally would tend to overwork and stay in office, then probably was not required and so on. So the key point I wanted to kind of call out is it's all about self-discipline, and that's become even more important in the home environment.
The key is self-discipline. Mr. Menon, as your opening comments, how would you terminalize this equilibrium? And is it achievable, to be honest?
Yeah. So thanks, Jenny. I think my colleagues have already, Rajesh and Manish, had talked about the work life. So for me, like the equilibrium, the work-life balance, there is one more word, fun at work. This is all myth. This is going to remain irrespective of you're at home or in office. When we were in office, we were talking about work-life balance. The issues were something different. As Rajesh mentioned, the issues are something different when you work from home. And as Manish also mentioned, people are working from home, working for home as working from home, right? Both of them. This myth is going to remain, the fun at work or work-life balance. So for me, I always tell my team, the work should be fun, right? So it's a different way of looking at if you make the work as fun, right? As Manish mentioned, if you can create that equilibrium, making that person feel, okay, the work is an enjoyable thing, automatically that any individual will able to balance the life. Because it's all about the thing which has changed in this pandemic is companies are started looking out for people who are entrepreneurial skills, right? Entrepreneurial skills. Entrepreneurial is nothing but the person who understands, who can manage his work, who can manage his personal life. So that is the skills which is people have started looking at. So for me, that is what is the record. If anybody make the work as fun, so that is what, according to me, is what equilibrium will.
Right. I think for my next question, I will start with you, sir, Mr. Menon. Our understanding of the financial sector is it could be quite stressful. It could be round the clock. So in that situation, when we're working towards that agility and that 24/7, it quite often leads to that burnout. It's quite contrary to having those boundaries and having it well divided. So how can we as leaders, ensure that agility is not at war with well-being?
Yeah. So that is a great question, Jenny. So it's up to the individual how to manage it. So I'm pretty sure all the companies have started various initiatives on like health initiatives like yogas or fitness sessions and everything. Everybody is doing it. But the question is, how many of us participate in that? I'm pretty sure every companies are doing it. There will be hardly few percentage of people come forward and participate in that initiatives. See, it's all about, as Manish also mentioned, it's all about self-discipline. It's all about the self-discipline of an individual, how he wants to get it in this environment, right? So for me, like to answer your question is, it's all about self-discipline again, and clearly setting up the boundaries, okay, where companies have started, like for example, for angel broking, we have ensured that, okay, between 1 o'clock till 2 o'clock, there is absolutely lunchtime, no meetings. No meetings should be scheduled between 1 and 2, okay? And after 7, let's not call for any meeting for official meetings or anything. So the thing is, companies have done it and providing employees with various initiatives on the front of on the well-being side. But the thing is, end of the day, it all depends upon the individual, how that person gets aligned to this new system. And if the person keep on saying, okay, my work-life balance is a problem, my work-life balance, I'm not able to adjust to the situation, it will create a problem to that individual.
Right. Mr. Menda, I would like to move on to you. And we understand now banking, things are changing phenomenally. Neo banking is on the rise, and our idea of what a traditional bank is replaced we'll never go back to the older definition. And in that situation, it seems like an all-important time for organizations to be headfirst in making changes in their work culture. And how do we stop that from becoming overwhelming? Stop that from becoming a 24/7 thing?
Yeah, Janani. So I think Subhash covered a lot of it, but I think from a banking standpoint, like you said, it's been an interesting journey. So in the past, we had the millennials who wanted to do everything on mobile and internet, and we had, of course, like my father wouldn't ever want to do anything on the internet and mobile banking because he thinks he'll be exposed to frauds. So he would love to go to the branch and do everything with the relationship manager, and that's how traditionally he's done banking. But that's now changed. So people do not want to go to the branches because one, they're exposed and they don't want to be actually in any way kind of jeopardizing their safety. So they have now started kind of learning banking and doing more on mobile and digital and so on. But that apart, I think this whole work culture part which you talked about 24/7 and the discipline part, I think Subhash already covered. But one important aspect I just wanted to call out is it all is defined by the culture of the organization. So if the culture of the organization is that, okay, Manish is on leave next week and he's going to be on holiday, do you then expect your colleagues and your managers to call you and give you work, or probably expect you to respond to an email or attend a call and so on? And the work culture is that when person is away, you should respect their personal time and actually give them that wellness break, the way we call it. I think then people would genuinely get that wellness break and be able to kind of devote a lot more on their personal time. And I think there the culture is that, you need to be available 24/7. We will call you on weekends. We'll call you any time of the night and you need to be available. There, I think it's going to be a big challenge. So I think the organization culture is the umbrella under which the work culture is defined. And for me, in our organization, if I am on holiday, I don't get calls. And similarly, I've never made calls to anybody unless it's an emergency or unless it's something urgent that can't wait. So I think that whole respecting each other's personal time is really important. And all that matters is you have to be courageous and bold enough to say no. So for example, somebody calls you in a polite and a nice manner, you have to say that I'm on holiday today. If it's not urgent, let's speak next week. But if you start engaging with a person saying that, okay, let's have a call, I will come on to the Zoom call now, I'll come on Google Hangouts and have the discussion with you, then you're not doing yourself very good. So I think the self-discipline coupled with the whole work culture bit is really important in my view.
Right. So drawing that personal line, I think that's also a lesson in mental health and taking care of yourself, self-care, having the boldness to say no. Moving on to you, Mr. Srivastava. The food and beverages industry has changed and supply chain is 24/7, whether we like it or not. Pandemic or not, food is very important. And now the relationship with delivery partners, with distributors, with those on the front line, and also ensuring timely sort of packages and everything is reached is a big concern in the food and beverage industry. So how is Capital Foods dealing with it, and how are you ensuring that it's not too overwhelming?
Nice, Jenny. For this question, I would have certainly dwelled upon this during this discussion. It has been a phenomenally inspiring experience, to be honest, in the last 12 months. Mm-hmm. On a supply chain side, first of all, yes, we are fortunate to be in food industry, and that is kind of and the brand that we own has been pretty in demand. Few things which has happened. One of the things which is organization culture, which has helped us, which we would like to believe extremely agile, pretty entrepreneurial, and therefore. So one of the things that we did when last year the lockdown started, since then till now, and Manish and Subhash has touched upon that, and practically every organization is doing that, which is we ensured that everybody is communicated that first of all their health and their family's health is first and foremost important, and nothing needs to be compromised, and business can take backseat if needed. Business will happen, but the first and foremost priority is this. Being in food industry, and we realized that was something, particularly last year, I started seeing the experience of hoarding and buying in bulk. People were stocking stuff. And we realized in that situation, just not a business, I think we felt that was kind of a national duty to ensure that we are able to produce and bring material to shelf, particularly give this comfort. We were fortunate that the entire team and Capital Food ensured that our plants were operational third day into lockdown, practically. 25th or 26th we started, and if my memory serves me right, 28th our two plants started operating, and by 4th or 5th of April, we were completely operational among all the facilities. Of course, this entailed that ensuring everybody stays in the plant, for manufacturing, creating staying facility to entertainment facility to food and those kind of stuff for laborers as well as for staff. On the supply side, while yes, there has been restrictions, but as I say, the partners who were associated with us have been extremely entrepreneurial, and wherever there was possibility, they actually went that extra mile to help. One of the things that we said, that the dignity of the community who works with the Capital Food is very, very crucial. We would like to ensure that they are taken care of first, and in return, what we got was that they did their best. So I think Manish mentioned about it. Subhash said that the entire culture is something I would attribute it to what we did. Transactional stuff, vehicles reaching on time and supplies are reaching on time has been. Yes, it looked frankly tough, but when we look back, I think everybody who was involved enjoyed it. All of us enjoyed it, and we continue to enjoy it. So I think I'll attribute to the culture and the spirit of the leadership as well as the people, and being part of something which is larger, which was serving the nation. I think that drove us phenomenally.
Right. My next question, I just want to pose it, and then we can go around in an order of preference.
Sure.
So we see that today our employees are of different types. We have a different demographic segregation for employees. We're seeing there is a few of them who are sandwich generation, who are taking care of ailing parents, who are taking care of young dependent children, and then there are working parents, or sometimes they're just working professionals, perhaps married, not married, with domestic duties. And then there are also a few of them who are young millennials who are just entering this workforce. So at a point when you have such different demographics joining you, how can we ensure a plan that caters to all? How to devise something that will be an employee well-being initiative for all of them, and tips on that?
See, Subhash mentioned about it, creating all the kinds of employee wellness initiatives or programs. I'll step back and take it in two parts. One is that what generally it happens and what we have done. Lots of organizations end up creating some such programs, but believe you me, my experience is that it is again another organizational driven program, and falls or perceived falling into the ambit of organization mandate. I think and that it's okay if there is a program, the people call, why are you not joining? All of us are here, and therefore you leave and you start joining because you don't want to be seen as left out or not participating. So the pressure of being present becomes more important than actually enjoying the stuff. Manish mentioned something that, and Subhash as well, is that finding fun in work is something which is very, very important. And I think if we are able to create that, yes, I understand all of us are in a particularly difficult situation. We have never envisaged. It was something which we were never prepared for. So yes, sometimes we end up saying that this is impacting the mental health, mental well-being. I'm sure that it does in certain cases where there is a situation which overwhelms people. At Capital Food, our motto is that health, family is first. So for example, so my day starts with a 9 o'clock call with all the relevant stakeholders in different fields and plants. Just only one question: how are you and how is your family and your team? Which means that every day you may have to come back with the information that someone last standing in this entire chain is also spoken to, talked to, or at least we know that what he is doing. Right. This message percolates right from top to bottom. That is something which is very, very critical. And I think I have spoken to lots of people directly and through our surveys, etc. One thing which came across, that everybody felt being cared for. I really don't know as an organization how much you will do, everybody will have their own limitations, etc. But this feeling of being part of a larger entity and someone is standing with you is something which to my mind has helped a lot. Second thing is empowering people at that point in time. So people are empowered right now. If there is a lockdown, there is a restriction, don't go out, then don't go out. We have a large sales force. Everybody is given this freedom to take a call. Do we have to can you afford to? Is it safe for you to go without compromising any local authorities' guidelines? So if there is a lockdown between this period to this period, you are not supposed to go out, which means you are not supposed to go out. You're not supposed to be venturing. So other than that, yes, there are programs. You've created the counseling sessions, etc. You create those if there is a need. But I wouldn't like to be mandated by the organization, rather creating some of these infrastructure for people to reach out and as and when needed. And being connected is something more important. More communication, more regular touch, to my mind, is more important. We had one or two instances where we had to provide some help, support to specific situations. But the fact is that information flew in the system in not more than 30 minutes. Everybody was aware, and entire infrastructure was activated without even somebody coming to know. I think that those are the things that we would like to. I think that helps a lot. Rather than with due respect, and communicating and advertising the calendar of. Yes, I understand the importance of it, but I think that sense, if we are able to create that inner sense of belongingness, and I think communication makes a hell of a difference to my mind.
Yeah, just to add what Rajesh mentioned. So, Jenny, to answer your question, is there any one fit formula for all the group? Answer is no. Okay, so but there is one fit formula to answer is also S. S is what Rajesh mentioned is communication. What happened in this pandemic, I'm pretty sure everybody will agree, it's a communication which matters. The way you communicate, sometimes you have to overdo the communication. You have to keep on doing, overdo it. Basically, so just to connect with the people, that's the only philosophy which worked in last 12 to 16 months of this pandemic. Over communication. But in that communication, is there engagement which is there, which is common? No. So across the level, people required a different set of requirement.
Yes.
The millennials' requirements are different. The Gen Z or Gen Y or Gen X requirements are different. So yes, the engagement activity is different, but one thing is common is the communication. Everybody required that touch which was there.
In fact, to be honest, if I may just add, see, the fundamentals of engagement or motivation of people is not changing, the mode possibly might have changed. For example, I miss the face-to-face in-person. I think nothing beats that. I'm yet to kind of come to terms with the virtual mode, and that the videos are giving all the cues, and I think that is something which I miss. The engagement, just walking into a colleague's on desk or in room and just having a casual conversation, some laughs and coming out, is something which I think is being missed a lot. But yeah, I think
I just wanted to build on what Rajesh and Subhash said. I think the Janani, the question that you had on multi-generations, I think it's not only on wellness. In every aspect we see there is a different way of dealing with things. For example, there are people who probably have been in the organization for many years, and I've got the millennials coming in and they're expecting a promotion and probably wanting to grow much faster. And probably there'll be somebody saying, oh, perhaps they are very mature, they want to grow faster and so on. The reality is you have to change your style of actually managing them. You can't be thinking the way you got promoted and you've grown in your organization. So that's one thing from a multi-generation standpoint. And I would probably just use a quick example of a buffet. I think you will have to have what can be the variety, right? If you're looking at a kind of a financial well-being kind of an intervention, then for the millennials, more around talking about saving, how can you kind of secure your future, etc. As you're closer to your retirement, it's about what are your retirement options, how do you really want to kind of save for your rainy day, etc., etc. So you have to do different sessions to support financial well-being, physical well-being, and mental well-being, and social well-being. And what each generation will require will be different. As an organization, we should provide enough variety so that it caters to everybody's requirements.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. My next question is really, as HR leaders, how do you see this evolving definition of an ideal employee? We've spoken about how employees need to have that self-discipline and how they can, ensure their personal and professional life is segregated. We've spoken about that, but from an HR standpoint, what is expected of a virtual employee? And
am I okay?
Yes.
See, first of all, to me, ideal is elusive. Okay, but obviously you always go for that. The ideal employee is obviously will be very different from organization to organization. The best fit, what we will look at as a HR is the best fit rather than the best. Actually, for Capital Foods, for example, we would look at somebody who is very, very experimentative with themselves, can think big, are willing to take responsibility, and not a policing, rather a responsible work ethic. Somebody who takes on and moves on, is looking for ideation, is willing to put and stick his neck out. So for Capital Foods, someone who is actually wanting to explore himself is a great induct. So that would be ideal employee, so to speak, which is at this stage when we are one of the fastest growing food companies in India. And so we would like people to actually who are kind of having that kind of an aspiration to be part of an extremely fast growing, experimentative, innovative, futuristic culture. It may be very different for someone else, or maybe very different for Capital Foods some years down the line.
I understand. I'm just force of habit, editorially framing it as ideal, but I just want to understand what is best preferred, perhaps maybe top 3.
So just Janni, just to add, see, we were from last so many years, we were talking about VUCA world, right? Right? We are in a VUCA world. Wherever you go, this is the word which you used to hear. And people really, in March 2020, people really understood what do you mean by VUCA world, right? That exactly everybody, it's not anyone, each and everyone understood what this VUCA world is all about, right? See, it's not to do with what kind of an employee which we are going to hire. It is what kind of an employee we are going to get. Okay, take an example of a kids who are studying at this point of time, okay, who has undergone this entire journey of studying at home on this. If those people are coming, those millennials are going to come to this corporate world, understand the philosophy of those people. For them, they know everything is possible on the Zoom and everything is possible on the net, right? Are they going to come to your office? They say, hey, what kind of a company you are, right? Everything is possible on the move, on the net. I will be at home, I will be doing. So that is what is going to change. That is what is happening. So the thing is, it is not the expectation of the company. It's the expectation of the company at this going forward is a person, somebody who is, as I said in the previous conversation, who is entrepreneurial. When I say entrepreneurial, who is a self-starter, who can innovate, who can get away, who will not come saying that, okay, this is what it is, who is ready for the change.
Right.
Because who will be ready, okay, something happens there and then he's ready for the change, he's get going. So that is what is going to change. That is what companies have started looking out for. And that is what you will get when you go after a few years. Those are the people who are ready for change at any given point of time. So that kind of a talent is going to come very soon.
Adaptable talent.
Yeah.
Mr. Mehta, over to you.
Yeah, so Janvi, I think Rajesh first gave their definition of probably like Rajesh, there's no concept of ideal because there's always some room of improvement for everybody. Nobody can be ideal in any world. And I wouldn't call anybody ideal as such. And like you said, it's just about giving you a bit of a direction on what you're looking for. So I think for me, what I'm really looking for in the virtual environment from an employee standpoint as an HR leader is one, somebody who continues to work hard but is not overworking. Somebody, again, using the same phrase, self-discipline. Somebody who's actually also, I think generally you use this word, self-care. So somebody who can take care of themselves. And I think the most important thing in the virtual environment for me is somebody who can actually find the right balance between all that is expected from him or her. For example, the work life, your career responsibilities, like you said, somebody is actually having parents to take care of. He's got kind of children to be now teaching and so on and so forth. So a person who can really have that nice and fine balance between the work-life commitment and personal life commitment, I think that's probably the best employee we can have, because that's what we really need. And we need to understand that, if probably the person is doing really well in his personal life space, he is then going to do well in his work-life space also, because that will then augment productivity. So your mental state of mind is really, really important. And therefore, if he's really doing well in his personal life, I think it will really help in the work life also.
Right. We've just had one question coming in from the audience. Our viewers want to know how to balance monitoring of productivity of the employees without seeming to pressurize them. How to find that monitoring productivity without making it seem like a boss. I think we have a lot of technological tools now to ensure how we know how somebody is working. Outlook gives us an insight as to how many mails goes out and all of that. As HR leaders, there is an access to that. So how can we advise managers to perfect monitoring without making it seem too pressurizing, without saying, oh, have you done this, have you done that, how many mails have you sent today? So without doing that. So over to anybody who would like to pick it up.
So I think the productivity tools and in terms of how you measure productivity does not change in my view. So you would have a kind of clear goal set, clear objective set for everybody, and those defined goals and objectives would actually then be the guiding north star for anybody who's probably trying to perform for the organization. Now, just because you moved virtually, I don't think productivity is not being measured. But I think the key point when you're working virtually is that point which Rajesh said. You just don't start all your conversations centered around productivity and what you've done so far, what are your targets. I think that Rajesh said that humane touch of how are you feeling today, how's your family, and how are you today is very, very important. What I've really seen in this whole last 1 year plus is that empathy factor in managers have really gone up because they are also in it. So they are actually suffering or going through the same challenges like their team members are going through. So that whole self-realization that, oh, by the way, this person has got a child who's not able to go to school, got somebody to take care of, they don't have house help to do cooking, etc., etc. So I think, I'm not saying that the productivity should be compromised, but I think for managers, the key aspects are there should be a little more empathetic. They should also be flexible. So it shouldn't be conversations in the past. Oh, by the way, this person gets out of the work 1 or 2 hours early, or the person takes long lunch breaks, etc., etc. I don't entertain any such complaints from any of my managers anymore. For me, it's about saying that as long as the person is being given flexibility and they are doing what it takes to be productive, that's fine. I think the other bit is we also have to be very, very sensitive to the situation here. Many of them are personally impacted. They had, career responsibilities and so on. There again, I think organizations have to be much more benevolent than normal by providing them additional days off and time off. And I think all organizations are doing the same, just to be supporting colleagues during that phase. So that's my kind of take on this topic.
Yeah,
see the productivity and how do you measure, I think has not changed as Manish has changed. Everybody has their goal, KRAs, etc. If we are able to create what I call a responsible work ethic, I think that takes care of itself. Not a policing system, and in a virtual environment when everybody is into it. In fact, I have heard people saying that our productivity has gone up. Okay, because the work life, we are sitting at home and all the time, so therefore I'm working. I think the self-discipline what Manish was mentioning is to be able to switch off, cut off and log off for a while is more important. Responsible work ethic is more important rather than actually monitoring through Outlook's number of emails, etc. I think the future is also not going to be that way. Is the way I foresee. There are jobs, certain jobs where there's going to be which are volume driven or workload driven jobs. They have always in the past been measured that way. They will continue to be measured that way. in fact, more empathetic work environment is something that I foresee, more responsible work environment that I foresee. I haven't seen last 1 year a single complaint with somebody, or single even an issue somebody raising that somebody is not reachable or somebody. In fact, we have served that don't call people. Like somebody said that 1 to 2 is lunch hour. So we say that on holidays, on Sunday, or these days, don't fix up any meeting. You can have a chit chat, etc. If you want to, but these are certainly no for us. I'm yet to, and touch wood, I am yet to hear somebody saying that somebody was not reachable or somebody was not. So I think productivity measurement will continue and will be driven more from the culture that you have been able to create.
So just to add to this question, Janni, so we as a company, Angel Broking, we have moved from this productivity tool of output driven to an outcome driven company. Okay, so we used to, a year back, we used to be an output driven kind of a productivity output driven kind of a company. So we have totally moved ourselves. We are not measuring any productivity on output based. We are measuring on the outcome based. We have introduced a system called OKR in the company. It's more of an outcome based kind of a stuff. So the companies are moving towards that. Many companies are moving towards that. From an output to a looking at productivity. Okay, what is that you have done? Output. That is an output. More from output driven to an outcome driven. Yeah.
Right. I think we have tapered down towards the end, and I would just like to understand closing comments from all of you, and also to perhaps dwell on how we can foster not just behaviorally think about burnout, avoidance of burnout, but rather go to the other side of the spectrum and look at wellness on priority. So your final comments, sir. Mr. Menda, we could start.
Yeah, so I think we always started off with leave being an entitlement and eligibility. I think what happened is when we hit wave 1 and during that pandemic, as we were reviewing leave data, as of YTD August, many colleagues had even taken a day off because everybody was waiting for the kind of country to open up and they will plan their holidays and take their holidays and so on. And reality is that never happened. We slowly almost tapered out of wave 1. There was a short break and then now we are in wave 2 and so on. So I personally think a lot more focus on taking time off and wellness is really, really critical. We in fact mandated people to take off, which we've not done in the past. We've said it's an entitlement you take as per your requirement, flexibility. But because people were saying, what do I do if I take a day off? Because I have nothing else to do. And that would be the trend if this continues, and wave 2 is probably a little more longer than what we anticipate. Then I presume we have to ensure that people are getting time off and able to balance the work life and personal life and just being away from like Rajesh was saying, this whole seeing people on video and missing people in person. I think we are also bored of seeing us on the Zoom screen every day. Every call you get into, you see yourself, which is not probably the way you do your meetings, right? So I think this whole cutting off and kind of working on that one is really important. I think the second most important thing I've seen is this flexi working. That whole element of flexibility coming into the workplace is really, really good. And I'm sure that will continue even in future, wherein probably if you say, by the way, I've got a yoga class between 11 to 12 and I will not be available for that 1 hour, but I'll make it up later in the evening. That kind of flexibility is really welcoming. And I think that the manager and colleagues are really working quite well to make that happen. And I think that's something that we need to keep in mind. And I think the third is we have to continuously ensure that our policies and our processes are supporting colleagues in all possible manners. We should understand that it is very difficult for colleagues to do things that they were expected to do in office, and therefore how can you make it really easy and make the whole colleague experience and colleague journey easy for them is really important from that perspective. So that would be my closing comments. Lovely to co-panel with Subhash and Rajesh, and thanks.
So for me, the closing comment says, see, work-life balance, as the opening comments also I mentioned, it's always remain. It will remain. It is not going to go away, right? So it's up to from an employee point of view, it is up to the individual how he or she wants to get aligned to this new world, right? And this is going to remain, and this is the new normal. People have to accept that employers, so anybody who's there, this is the new normal. This is going to happen. And I think some of our panelists talked about the hybrid structure, and that is going to remain. That is going to happen. So from an employee point of view, yes, my closing comment is people have to get adjusted to this new normal. From a from an employer point of view, yes, there is lots of initiatives which has to be done to connect with the employee, because I'm pretty sure everybody would be facing the collaboration issue, right? People, those breakaway meetings, the breakout zone, the canteen time. So those are the things. So what I envisage, the employers will have to set up something on a collaboration office where people can come, collaborate with each other and go back. So that's the model. That's what I will say. That's the future.
See, there are two things. So I'll just step back and say that we have always, and I have read or wherever, lots of things have been talked about pandemic creating this work-life pressure, etc. I live in Bombay. I'm sure both of my colleagues are here, and they will vouch. There are lots of things which this situation. There are lots of positive aspects of this. Particularly people who live in Bombay, the 4 hours of traveling time to and fro every day is a bonus that everyone has kind of got. For example, participating in this kind of a conference or networking or those kind of things has become far more superior and easier. I wouldn't have imagined on a weekday going to participate in a conference for an hour, etc., driving down 2 hours and then coming back. That would have entailed the 5-6 hours of commitment to do that. While in past 1 year, I might have attended or participated or done some education, which was you finish the work and then next 5 minutes you're somewhere else and doing something else. So the opportunity, the time available at hand has become phenomenal. In fact, it could be also a function that stress is getting created because you are actually trying to grapple with too many things because there is enough time at hand, which otherwise would have not happened. All of us have got so much time spending with family. I think Manish has mentioned self-discipline. I think if we are able to do that, one can look forward to spending time. You wouldn't have seen kids studying and what they are doing at home. There is an opportunity. You can actually take out 30 minutes and spend time with them. Most of our kids would have grown that way, that they would have seen us only in the night, coming, eating and sleeping. I think family has to get used to some of us who are working and have started staying in office. I know more than... Having said that, the future is going to be very different. Subhash touched upon, I see a future of office is very, very, very different. I wouldn't imagine it could be rhetorical at this point in time that maybe you won't have cabins and workstations. Rather, you will have lots of meeting rooms and banquet kind of a facility where occasionally teams will come, chit chat, meet. That need of being connected and belonging in person is something which I don't foresee going away, and therefore some of the offices of future may have more collaborative rooms where occasionally people will come to office but not to do work, but rather interact, spend time meeting, having lunch and those canteens that we miss and going back. And then possibly people will work more from home. An office is going to be a place where you will occasionally come. So to my mind, that's the future that I foresee. So advantages of this pandemic, I don't think that we should let go, because something we have become extremely dexterous overnight with Zoom and IT platforms, etc. I would imagine a lot of IT security stuff getting in place. Still, we are kind of all organizations wouldn't have created that kind of infrastructure, and therefore organizations may need to spend more time and more resources on creating that technology platform, which makes it far more seamless and collaborating in working. So these are the three things to my mind, which I suspect as my parting comments for today. It was a pleasure with Manish and Subhash and Jen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for summarizing that. And I think for all the audience watching, we have learned something, and we've learned something for different people. For employees, learn to have that division, have that self-discipline to make boundaries for yourself, have the boldness to say no. And for managers, when it comes to managing productivity, do understand to be outcome, not just outcome-based, sort of impact-based. How it's not about numbers, rather about what are we getting, what we want, but rather in a qualitative way. And for employers, most of all, be an empathetic leader and create a collaborative workspace. I think this has been a very enlightening panel, very easy to follow. I thank you so much for answering my questions with so much patience and for giving us your insights today. Thank you, Mr. Manish. Thank you, Mr. Vinay. Thank you, Mr. Srivastava.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Manish. Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you, Janani.
Thanks,
Bye.
Manish. Bye.